I'm going to be really honest with you. I am going to gloss over all of the common reasons that you've heard about why decluttering is so great, because I want to dive much deeper and focus on my personal story and how decluttering, I don't want to say saved my life, that's a bit dramatic, but certainly turned my life around. It really gave me hope at a time when I thought there wasn't any, and it transformed my life in ways that I could not have foreseen when I first started. So it's really only with the benefit of hindsight that I can share these with you. Let's go. Hey, how's it going? It's Laura, and the first one I want to dive right into. So I have three kind of main reasons, or three stories that I want to share with you that highlight how decluttering has really had a massive impact on my life. And the first is about improved mental health. Sometimes you know you're going through something, but other times you don't know until you kind of come out the other side, and sometimes it might even be ahead of you. You know, maybe you've had kind of a reasonably good life, good mental health up until now, but you never know what life has in store for you, whether that be, you know, grief, depression, loss, anxiety, or just general uncertainty and upheaval. When I had my daughter, I knew that I was going through a tough time. I knew I was going through some upheaval, but it wasn't until afterwards that I realized how bad it was. You know, I didn't realize the full extent of it until I was out the other side. You know, everyone tells you that having a baby is hard, but you can never fully prepare for that. Like, you can never fully comprehend it until you have lived it. And it is challenging in so many different ways, like obviously physically, but mentally and emotionally, it kind of just attacks you from all angles. So when I felt terrible, it was really difficult for me to know or to separate what was kind of normal terrible and what was not normal terrible. I said that at the outset, decluttering gave me hope at a time when I thought there wasn't any, and that was one of those times. I was really drowning, really struggling. I had lost like all sense of myself, all sense of happiness, enjoyment, fulfillment with my life, and I also lost control of my home. You know, there's toys, there's baby stuff, etc. When Sam and I first moved in together, we were already combining, you know, two households of stuff into one, and we both had, particularly with clothes, we'll say, we both had a lot of those, but for the most part, I had a handle on it. You know, we had a handle on it, things were going okay, until they weren't. What decluttering helped me to do was to regain some control over my physical space, which in turn helped me regain some of my mental and emotional space. And a lot of that was through those, you know, common reasons that I told you I would gloss over, like easier to find things, for example, quicker and easier to tidy up. And then less time spent doing that meant I had a little bit more time to focus on other things. It meant I had a little bit more energy, a little bit more patience. Made my daily routine that much easier. Everything from just getting dressed in the morning to preparing meals and snacks. It helped me feel like a better mother and a better wife, a better homemaker, and just in general a better, happier person, a better grown-up. But in truth, I did it for me, even though it did benefit my husband and my daughter. I really did it for me, and I was the one who saw the biggest benefit from it. And just like how, you know, clearing out the junk helps you to regain some space, it helps you to maybe kind of rediscover some hidden treasures, decluttering for me helped me to rediscover my happiness. Like, it helped me to rediscover myself, the things that I enjoyed doing, the things that brought me happiness, and gave me the headspace, the time, and the energy to actually do and enjoy the activities that I loved. Decluttering not just gave me back my home, but, and I know it sounds cheesy, but it gave me back myself. It then saved me a second time, and this was one of these more unforeseen circumstances. Something that was not at all on the cards when I got married, had a baby. We moved across the Atlantic from Ireland to here, the United States. It meant that I left behind family, friends, a legal career, and really the only home, like the home country that I had ever known. And not only that, but I had to do it, we had to do it pretty quickly. I mean, obviously it didn't happen overnight or anything, but Sam and I had previously applied for and been denied visas. So we really didn't think it was going to happen. When our first application was declined, our lawyer, our immigration lawyer, couldn't understand it. He thought there must have been some error. So he advised us to reapply. So we did. You know, he said there was no reason why our application should have been refused. So we put in a second application and that was also denied. I don't know what was going on, but our lawyer was so like incensed at the time. He was so frustrated by the whole process that he said that he would put in a third application for us for free. He just like could not understand why we had been denied. So he was like, I'm taking this on. I'm going to put in another application for you. And we were like, sure, you know what? Go for it if you're going to do it for free, because I don't know if you know anything about the visa process, but it ain't cheap. So yeah, we let him go do his thing, but we were not holding out any hope pretty much. But then all of a sudden we got called for an interview. The interview process, if you're not familiar with it, or certainly for US immigration, I'm not familiar with any other sort of like interview process for other visas, but you get called to the embassy and it's basically just a formality. It's like a rubber stamping exercise. It's just the kind of final tick on the checklist. So we showed up, you know, kind of, we didn't know what to expect. We showed up and it was weird. We were interviewed together, but the guy basically ignored me for the vast majority of the interview. That was kind of like understandable because the visa was based on Sam's job because the company was based here in the US. But at the end of it, the officer there said he wasn't happy with our application and he was going to take it and review it all over again. And we left feeling so defeated, so downhearted, because we thought, well, that's the end of that. Like, we had come so close this time. It really was very upsetting. Like, this was it. This was our third application. If it wasn't gonna happen then, it wasn't gonna happen. Out of the blue, a few days later, we got word that our application had been approved. We were told our passports would be returned to us in the next few days, and then, yeah, basically 10 weeks later, we arrived here in the States. And in those 10 weeks, we like packed up our home, we hired movers, we decluttered a lot. We obviously said goodbye to family and friends. We house hunted virtually, like we had to look for a place to live online because we had never been to Cincinnati before. We had no idea like about anything basically. We didn't have time to come over and have a look around, so we had to find a place online to rent. That was pretty stressful. We had to pack up our lives basically, pack our suitcases, book our flights, like I said, say goodbye to everyone, and then board the plane. I cannot imagine how much more stressful that whole process would have been had I not already decluttered a huge amount of stuff. Like I said, we did downsize a lot more during the packing process, but the bulk of the work had been done previously. It took two guys only about 2 hours to pack up essentially our entire apartment. They didn't pack like the bigger furniture. We didn't bring beds and stuff, but we did bring some chairs and bookcases and things like that. But our stuff didn't even take up half a crate. Like, they had this big wooden box. It didn't even take up half of that. And then on the flip side, like over here, when it arrived to us several weeks later here in the States, it came on the back of just like a regular U-Haul truck. The guy actually said that he had brought out like the big, long, like articulated lorry type trucks. That's what he had assumed because we were like a transatlantic move, so he assumed we would have a lot of stuff. And then when he saw how much was in the crate, he went and just got like the standard small little like U-Haul thing, the thing that you would like rent yourself if you were like moving some stuff. But yeah, like packing was so much easier, unpacking was so much easier. It made a situation that would normally have been incredibly stressful, you know, like a transatlantic move. Well, just moves in general are stressful, but particularly transatlantic, but it made that whole process much smoother and less expensive because moving, particularly transatlantic, you know, like applying for visas, like having a baby, it definitely stretches the purse strings. But because we had a lot less stuff, it took a lot less to store it, ship it. It didn't take as long to pack up. It didn't take as long to unpack, and it took a lot less to insure it. That's one of the kind of hidden costs I feel of moving, and something that we kind of hadn't factored in. But not only do you have to pay to ship all of your stuff, but you also have to pay to insure what you are shipping. So the fact that we didn't have a lot of stuff meant our insurance costs were lower than they could have been. But you really never know what life has in store for you. So it could be a move, transatlantic or otherwise. It could be the loss of a loved one, and suddenly, you know, you inherit a lot of stuff. It could be a grown child that moves back home. It could be the arrival of a new child. Maybe you have to you know, take in an elderly parent, maybe you have to take in a friend in need, but there are so many circumstances in life that we can't foresee, or maybe that just we don't think are on the cards for us right now. And it doesn't even have to be this big life-altering thing. Like, it could be something as simple and everyday as somebody calling up out of the blue saying like, hey, I'm in the area, can I stop by? And all of a sudden you are like panic cleaning everything and shoving things into closets. Decluttering is what is going to really come in clutch, as the kids say these days, for all of those unforeseen situations, whether they be big or small. And the third way that decluttering has transformed my life, and the reason that I recommend that you get started as soon as possible, is the ripple effect. Now, I am a people pleaser. Definitely. I am a perfectionist, and I am Irish. And I don't know if you know this about Irish people, and truthfully, I personally did not even fully realize this until I moved to the States. We will say yes to things, even if we don't want to do them, just to avoid any sort of confrontation or unpleasantness. We will begrudgingly say yes to your request, and then we will silently curse you and ourselves for having agreed to it. I did not understand that. I did not realize that until, like I said, I moved here to the States and people started saying no. Like, I heard people say no to things, and it was a whole new world. This was a revelation to me. I once met up with a friend that I had only ever known online, like we were meeting in real life for the first time, and we went out for dinner the evening that I arrived, and it was lovely. We had a lovely time, and the kind of plan was that I would go to her house the following morning to meet her family. So that was fine. The next morning rolled around and I sent her a quick text message to say like, hey, I'm going to be there at this time, so she knew to expect me. And she texted back and she said, sure. Now, as an Irish person, like, I immediately texted my Irish friend and I was like, I told her I was coming over. She said, sure. For the uninitiated, okay, sure to an Irish person means I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to say yes because I don't want to appear rude. Yeah, like I said, I texted this friend. We went back and forth for like a while, like dissecting this one word, because she also, as an Irish person, like innately understood that sure was not a good sign. Eventually I said, listen, she seems like a pretty straight talker. I'm gonna go over to her house. I'm gonna suss out the vibe. And if I sense that something is off, I'm immediately just going to make my excuses and leave. When I tell you, she could not have been more welcoming. She was so lovely. Her family were so lovely. I had such a wonderful time. And eventually, like later on in the day, I told her the story. I told her that, you know, I had been a little bit hesitant initially when I had received her text message, and I explained the whole thing about sure, that to an Irish person, unless it's followed by like lots of exclamation marks and a big smiley face, sure is not necessarily a good thing. She thought it was hilarious. But yeah, that was kind of like my first real proper encounter with somebody who just like says what they mean. If they say sure, they mean sure. If they say no, they mean no. But yeah, it was really comforting actually to me to know that if I asked somebody to do something, if they didn't want to do it, they would just say no, because often I feel that I don't know, you know, if they say yes, I'm not sure if they're just saying yes to be polite. Whereas over here now in the States, and sometimes I'm sure people still do say yes to be polite, but for the most part, if somebody doesn't want to do something, they will just say they don't want to do it. And through that now, I am learning to say no thank you to certain things. But yeah, that was kind of one of those funny stories, and it has become like an inside joke with us now. But to tie all that back into decluttering, the reason that decluttering has helped me immensely is because it has kind of honed my like joy meter, or whatever you want to call it. It has helped me to realize what I like and what I don't like, you know, to easily separate those two things, to more easily identify them. You kind of like strengthen your no muscles, you hone your instincts, and when you say no to physical clutter over and over again, you are strengthening that muscle, you are strengthening your ability to say no to other things. You strengthen your resolve to say no to other clutter in your life. So you start saying no to temporal clutter, for instance. You start saying no to relational clutter. Pretty soon, but before you know it, there's pretty much no clutter left in your life at all. And if you're like, wait, okay, how many forms of clutter are there? 9. There are 9, at least that I have identified. And if you really want to declutter your entire life, you need to be tackling most, if not all of them. That's how you're going to reap the full rewards and get the full benefit out of decluttering. I've outlined them in this video. Go see if you can get a full house on your decluttering bingo card. Get decluttering as soon as you can, is my advice to you. Gur míle maith agaibh, agus feicim mé sibh go luath. Slán!